Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect. Right, today I have this article. As you read the title here, it reads, Convicted Former Harvard Scientist Rebuilds Brain Computer Lab in China. Right, now what it's going into is how you had this, this renowned scientist, chemist or whatever, right, how he was working in the US and I guess, keeping secret that he was getting paid from China, and it was figured out. He got sent to jail for a pretty short amount of time, but after he got out, right, he pretty much went to China and started working for them, but what caught my attention was what they're working on. Right, as we read here in the title, Brain Computer Lab in China. And we know that China is I believe it's the leading country when it comes to technology. Let's just fact check that. Still leading. Switzerland is often ranked as the most technological advanced country, leading innovation, research, patent fillings. Okay, it's not working. Japan is number 1 in technological expertise. Reading here. Wi-Fi going a little slow. That's all right. Okay, it's more than just a little slow now. Alright, and we can read it here. It says Japan is number 1 in technological expertise, number 2 in best countries overall, South Korea number 2 in technological expertise, China number 3 in technological expertise. So China is up there, right? We know this though. Everyone knows that. But jumping into the article, right, because it goes into, them putting a focus on pretty much, neurotechnology. And we know what that's leading into, right? It reads, an American scientist convicted of lying to U.S. authorities about payments from China while he was at Harvard University has rebuilt his research lab in Shenzhen to pursue technology the Chinese government has identified as a national priority. And what are they putting such focus on? Embedding electronics into the human brain, right? So why would China see this as a national priority? That's something very dire, very important, and that's because they know this is the next step in in the system. The next step in the world is to go all digital and to have implants, brain implants, or implants in general, right? Transhumanism, that's the next step. And China always, when it comes to technology, right, they try to be ahead. Going against America, all these countries, they be having their little races and stuff. But it reads here once more, Chinese government has identified as a national priority. Now, let's search something up here. What does it mean when a government something as a national priority? When a government deems something a national priority, it signifies that the issue is elevated above routine policy matters to become a top-tier focus for the state's resources, legal authority, and political attention. Right? So China is continuing, this designation often means the issue is considered essential to national security, economic stability, or critical infrastructure requiring immediate and often urgent action, right? Because the next the next step in infrastructure, the next step in the economy and the system is what? Going all digital, man. And in them having pretty much, being able to embed that technology within people allows them total control. Because as we're going to read, right, it's going to get to the point where they can literally, be able to control people, through brain implants and whatnot. And this is all prophecy, right? But it's going to show you that, the words of Yahweh Ba'ashim Shai, as we read, let's get this right here before we continue reading. It's the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, verse 3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak, right? And you have, when that time is not yet, people are able to deny certain things, right? They can deny, the MOTB being the micro C hip. They can deny, the fact that we're moving towards a digital system and so on and so forth. But then when those things start to show themselves to be correct, right? When the news comes out with this, leading back to this prophecy, or, when the world just seems like it's moving towards a certain prophecy, right? The prophecy is starting to speak, then there's no way you can deny it, man. But at the end it shall speak and not lie, though it tarry, wait for it, right? Because and the prophecy is not going to speak, because why? It's the Most High's prophecy, and the Lord does not lie. So everything he says will come to pass. It's just when. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry, right? Let's get this in the NLT. This vision is for a future time. It describes the end. It will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, wait patiently, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. And that's what we're coming into, man. Because what does this scream? Revelation 13 and 16. And this shows you what? That this MOTB will indeed be a physical implant, man. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 16, straight to the point. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Let's go into this word mark real quick. Here you have the Greek word charagma, a stamp and imprinted mark of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as the badge of the followers of the anti-Mashiach, the mark branded upon horses, a thing carved, sculpture, graven work of idolatrous images. Now, these chips that they create, right, that's likened unto a thing carved, a sculpture. And that shows you that is going to be a physical, thing. Because you cannot carve, you cannot literally carve a thought. You cannot graven something that's not there, something you can't touch, right? Now going deeper, we have the word harax, a pale or stake, a palisade or rampart, pales between which earth, stones, trees, and timbers are heaped and packed together. Now a pale or stake or a palisade is basically like a sharp pointed piece of wood or instrument. And what this would be likened unto in our time, right, dealing with this MOTB, is the pretty much the tool or the utensil that they use in order to pierce your skin, in order to implant that mark, whatever they use to pierce your skin in order to give you, or to apply that chip to your brain, however they get it inside, because they got to open your skin, right? And that's what pretty much this is speaking about, the harax. Now going deeper, right, you have the word grapho, to write with reference to the form of the letters, to delineate or form letters on a tablet, parchment paper, or other material. And what would be that other material, right? What would be being written upon? Well, it would be your skin, them cutting into your flesh in order to implant it, implant whatever, in your forehead, in the head, whatever. To write with reference to the contents of the writing, to express in written characters, to commit to writing things not to be forgotten, write down, record, use of those things which stand written in the sacred books. Right. Now continuing here, verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And that name of the beast, the number of his name, those things are going to be programmed into that, into the chip. As we just read in the word grapho, right, that goes into writing. Well, what's a part of writing, right? Dealing with technology, code. Code is a form of writing. Verse 18, here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Now when you go into that final sticks, you have the Greek word stigma. High, psi, stigma. Here, stigma, a mark pricked in or branded upon the body. The ancient oriental usage, slaves and soldiers bore the name or the stamp of their master or commander, branded or pricked, cut into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to. And the way that it would be pricked in or cut into you, right, would be using what? The crux. And there were even some devotees who stamped themselves in this way with the token of their gods, right? And it's the same thing now, right? Taking that MOTB is what? You idolizing Esau's technology and their system. That's you worshiping the beast. That's you bowing down to the beast, man. So continuing here, it says, reading this once more, because that's right in front of your face, man. To pursue technology, the Chinese government has identified as a national priority. And we just went into that definition, right? So this is prioritized above everything else, man. Embedding electronics into the human brain. Why the hell would that be a national priority? Come on now. Why? Why else, man? Charles Lieber, 67, is among the world's leading researchers in brain-computer interfaces. The technology has shown promise in treating conditions such as ALS and restoring movement in paralyzed patients, but it also has potential military applications. And I've learned, right, we've learned that you cannot put anything past these devils, and we know that at the end of the day, all these leaders, right, when you go higher up on the ladder, they're all working towards the same goal. Now here it is. This guy was a really renowned scientist, as we just read, is among the world's leading researchers in brain computer interfaces, and yet the US pretty much just let him leave, and go off to China and quote unquote, work for the enemy. And when you go into the article, it reads how pretty much when he was in the US, it was only so much he can do, right? Like, hey, he was limited versus him moving to China. He's got way more materials and more access to this and more access to that, and that could have been pretty much a working together just to get him that better workspace to get to their goal that they want to reach, right? And they're just trying to frame it as this, to make it seem like this. But that's just all speculation. But continuing here, the technology has shown promise in treating conditions such as ALS and restoring movement in paralyzed patients. And that's what, these are miracles that they use to get people on board with this type of technology. They tell you, oh, if you let us implant this in your brain, you might have been born legs not working. Well, we can get it to work. We can stimulate this and do that, right? You were born blind. Well, we can fix that, so on and so forth, right? That's one avenue they use to, get people on board before they pretty much force you. But it also has potential military applications. Scientists at China's People's Liberation Army have investigated brain interfaces as a way to engineer super soldiers by boosting mental agility and situational awareness, according to U.S. Defense Department, right? And this is another part of the pseudo miracles that these people are going to pretty much do using their technology, right? Because this doesn't just stop at China. As we read, this man was working here in the U.S. before he went to China, so you best believe, and U.S. already got what Elon Musk them, they on the same wave, right? It's called a new world order for a reason. So these are pseudo miracles using technology in order to pretty much give themselves spiritual power, and upgrades, right? And ultimately, with the goal of, trying to fight Yahweh Shai, as scriptures say, which is not going to end well for them, But what they try to do is, pretty much try to maintain the promises that the Lord has promised Jake, and really dealing with Esau, because that's what they're trying to do. But it also has potential military applications, and this shows you that they're going to literally be able to control people with these brain chips or whatever, right? Because it's like the brain is pretty much the messenger, so to speak. Before you move your arm, your brain tells that part to move, right? It just happens very fast. So if they can work, on your brain to get it to do this and to do that, then they can make you do this and do that against your own will. Why? Because they now have that power over, the pretty much the power source. According to the U.S. Defense Department, Labor was found guilty by a jury and convicted in December 2021 of making false statements to federal investigators about his ties to a Chinese state program to recruit overseas talent and tax offenses related to payments he received from a Chinese university. He served 2 days in prison and 6 months under house arrest and was fined $50,000 and ordered to pay look at these numbers, 33,600 in restitution to the Internal Revenue Service. During the case, his defense said he was suffering from an incurable lymphoma, which was in remission, and he was fighting for his life. 3 years after he was sentenced, Labor is now overseeing China's state-funded iBrain, or the Institute for Brain Research, Advanced Interfaces, and Neurotechnologies. Right? Neuro pretty much going into the brain. Right? Here, grabbing it once more, or in their foreheads. What's in your forehead? Your brain. Only grabbed this in the NLT. I never really read this in the NLT. He required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on the right hand or on the forehead. No. They going off, right? It says in the forehead or in in their hand or in their foreheads. So the NLT tripping, because there's a difference between on versus in. A mark on your hand or your forehead could be a fucking tattoo, right? But now they saying in, and that's a whole different ball game. Advanced interfaces and neurotechnologies with access to dedicated nano fabrication. So nano going into that small unit of measure fabrication. So pretty much nanotechnologies creation, right? Creating nanotech or whatever equipment and primate research infrastructure unavailable to him at Harvard, right? So yeah, this is what I was going into, right? He had it says with access to dedicated nanofabrication equipment and primate research infrastructure unavailable to him at Harvard. So him, the materials that he has is better in China than it was here. The lab is an arm of the Shenzhen Medical Academy of Research and Translation, or SMART. I arrived on April 28th, 2025 with a dream and not much more, maybe a couple of bags of clothes, Labor said of his move to China at a Shenzhen government conference in December. Personally, my goals are to make Shenzhen a world leader. Labor, through an assistant, declined an interview request citing current commitments. He didn't respond to written questions. Smart last year appointed Labor as an investigator, according to a post on iBrain's website dated May 1st, 2025. That news was covered by some media outlets the same day. iBrain said Labor had also been appointed its founding director, an announcement that went unreported at the time. This story is the most comprehensive account of Labor's activities since he moved to China. The report reveals for the first time that his lab has access to dedicated primate research in which humans are categorized as primates, right? Research facilities and chip making equipment. Remember, this is a national priority. That it sits within a sprawling ecosystem of state-backed institutions bankrolled by billions of dollars in government funding, and that it is housed within an institution that is luring top scientist talent back from the United States. And right, this is a national priority for China. Now remember, the founder of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, what did he say about China? Right, that China was a model, pretty much a model, a role model for the other nations, you know. So if that's the case, what would the other nations be doing? You know, moving towards the same thing that China is, which they all are, a digital system, man, completely digital. And we know that China is already, you know, overboard with the Big Brother system, right? With all the surveillance, you know, and the technology everywhere. You know. In 2011, Labor was named the world's top chemist for the preceding decade in a set of scientific rankings published by Thomson Reuters, the parent of Reuters' new agency, Thomson Reuters, which in 2016 sold the business that compiled the rankings, declined to comment. Some analysts say Labor's ability to reconstitute his laboratory after a federal criminal conviction for lying about his ties to China shows how U.S. safeguards on technology with potential military uses haven't kept pace with Chinese government efforts to acquire it. Slovakia. That concern is amplified because of Beijing's military civil fusion strategy, whereby civilian scientific resources and research are shared with the military. You know, so they moving different over there in China, man. You can't keep shit to yourself. And that's coming to America too. China has weaponized against us our own openness and our own efforts for innovation, said Glenn Gertzdell, a non-resident senior advisor at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and former general counsel of the U.S. National Security Agency from 2015 to 2020. They flipped that and turned it around against us, and they're taking advantage of it. The Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology and the Defense Ministry didn't respond to questions about China's development. Okay. Okay, well, we close it out on here, right? Labor's new perch. The Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology and the Defense Ministry didn't respond to questions about China's development of brain-computer interfaces. Smart and iBrain also didn't reply to requests for comment about their research and recruitment of Labor. Labor's new perch appears to give him richer resources than he had in the United States. Exactly. The Shenzhen iBrain in February installed a deep ultraviolet lithography system made by Semiconductor Equipment against ASML. According to the lab's website, the Dutch company's machines print the tiny circuits essential to cutting-edge chips. At Harvard, Labor used shared lithography equipment at the university's Center for Nanoscale System. The center serves more than 1,600 users annually, according to its website. Right, and remember, it brought of nano fabrication, or pretty much nanotechnologies, and I'm pretty sure is the RFID Microchip. Nanotech. RFID microchips are generally considered microtechnology, not nanotech, as they typically use components measured in micrometers, rather than nanometers. While they often use advanced silicon manufacturing, true nano RFID is an emerging field using nanomaterials to create smaller sensors. Most human implants are about the size of a grain of rice. Okay, so not quite nanotech. Micro, 100 nanometers. Modern chips use nanotechnology in manufacturing, so not nanobots. Research into nano. Okay, I get what it's saying. So the actual thing itself it's considered micro technology, but within it you have nanotechnology. Okay, makes sense. Domestic. Right, that's all we pretty much need here. Right, the main point was, the fact that China is deeming this as a national priority. Right, that is, top level, focus. Right. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 3, and it reads, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished." Right, and a prudent man would be likened unto what? A wise man. And ultimately, the prudent are those who listen to the word of Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, because as we read in Habakkuk, the second chapter and the third verse, the scriptures, the prophecies do not lie; they will speak, right? And the Lord is telling us what's to come. So those who are to pretty much disregard the words of the Lord are likened unto fools, simple. But if you were to hearken unto the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, then you would be likened unto what? A prudent man. It reads, Arawam, subtle, shrewd, crafty, sly, sensible. Crafty, shrewd, sensible, prudent. Prudent, crafty, subtle, right? And mainly what? In a sensible sense. Because you are, pretty much, you're hearing the words of the Lord, right? It's making sense, and you're putting two and two together. And that's ultimately, if the Lord does not want it to make sense to you, then it's not going to make sense, right? As Isaiah the 6th chapter, around the eighth verse, right? How the Lord purposely blinds some and purposely reveals his mysteries to some. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, and ultimately, right, dealing with the evil here is what? That system, the MOTB, the mandatory implementation of that MOTB. And hideth himself. How would you hide yourself from that? Well, seeking Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, because only those who ultimately serve the Lord is going to then, hide them from that evil. Right? This is the book of Revelation chapter 3 verse 10, and it reads, "Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation." And when you look into that word temptation, let's just go into it real quick. Here you have the word parasmos, an experiment, attempt, trial, right? Here parazo, again, pretty much going to trying you, right? A testing. Now when you get all the way here to the word pira, it reads, a trial, experiment, attempt a thing, to make trial of thing or of a person, right? So again, to make trial of, to attempt, to experience through what? Down here, through the idea of piercing, because that's going to be that ultimate test the Lord is seeing. The ultimate test of faith is if you take that MOTB or not. But as we're reading here, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, so ultimately what? You were sensible when it came to the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Abishai, the prudent man, right? He hearkened unto the words of the Lord, And not only that, but kept the word of the Lord's patience, which is what? Is truth, right? The wisdom and knowledge of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. I will also, Slakia, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which ultimately is whether you take that MOTB or not, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. So this is going to be a global thing. Now, going back here, a prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished, right? And why are they likened unto being simple? Let's look into this word simple here. Because you have to be simple for, something to be broken down to you, right? You see it pretty much playing out, and yet you still don't prepare yourself for it. Someone told you that it was coming. You can see it down the street coming, yet you just stand there, right? Giving an example, there's a car, and you're just, say you're walking on the sidewalk, and there's a car that's, has a drunk driver or whatever. Someone notices you, and that'd be likened unto what? The men of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai preaching the word. They're telling you, yo, it's a drunk car coming, get out the way. They get the hell out the way, but you stand there and you see it coming, yet you still let the car hit you. Why? Because you are simple. Here you have Pathaya, or Patha. Simplicity, naivety, simple, foolish, open-minded. Simple ones, foolish, simplicity. So the foolish, man. Fools for not hearkening unto the words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Not repenting when the time was there. But the simple pass on and are punished, right? Because ultimately the simple are going to take that MOTB and take part in the destruction for those who do take that MOTB, right? Let's grab that as well. It's the book of Revelation, the 14th chapter. I'm going to get straight to the point. We start at verse 9. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 14, verse 9. And the third angel followed him, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast, and the beast is ultimately dealing with Esau and his America and its allies, right? The power structure of Esau, really America, NATO, and the EU, right? And his image going into the system that they are trying to create by way of all of this technology, and really, right? Because the beast, really that beast is what? The ancient Roman Empire, but in its revival today, which would be America and its allies, and this image would be that same system brought back and perfected through their technology. If any man worship the beast in his image, and that's going to be a system of Esau having total control. People refer to it as a big brother system, and that's just, that's not for nothing. Right? When you have it should really be like a father system, because the father, it's like someone being on you 24/7, watching your back, telling you can't do this, you can't do that, right? If you do something wrong, they on your ass instantly, right? Hey, they pretty much market to people, if you take this brain chip, you take this implant, we can fix your legs, you can start walking again. The minute but let's say you do something that they don't like, they turn that shit off. Now you all fucked up again. That's the type of shit that they gonna be doing. They're gonna have what's it called? A global basic income, GBI. I feel like I'm saying that wrong, but right, a global basic income, and they determine how much you get, determine what you can spend it on, right? Determine when you can spend it, and so on and so forth, man. They're literally going to have control over everything, right? They don't have that now. They got control over most things, but they can't, really control every aspect of your life. But with this system that they're trying to implement, you best believe that they can, man. Or they're going to try, and you're going to have to take that MOTB in order to be a part of that system. Now you may say, right, well then I'm just not going to take it. Well, as we read here, they're going to force people's hands. Revelation chapter 13, verse 17, and that no man might buy or sell. So you won't be able to, without that MOTB, because you won't be able to participate in society. You won't be able to buy and sell. You won't be able to get food. You won't be able to have a shelter. You won't be able to, gain the necessary things to ultimately live, right? And that's going to get a lot of people to want to take this MOTB, right? And that's another part of these devils purposely collapsing the society to get people to that devastated state to where they're reaching out for Esau, reaching out for their government to help them, and they gonna help you, all right. They got the perfect solution. But that's a part of that temptation, because the Lord, even though Esau thinks they're doing this, right, it's really all the will of the Lord. The Lord wants to see, will you have trust on him in that time, right? Will you maintain faith on him and his words in those times, man? And not bow down to the beast, not worship his image, not take his mark, but instead continue to worship Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And he causeth all, wrong chapter, doom for worshippers of the beast. And the third angel followed up, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast, America, NATO, and the EU, in his image, their system, and receive his mark in their forehead or in his hand, right, as we just read, pretty much a brain chip, or the chip in the hand, right, a brain implant, or in the hand, which is going to be that RFID micro chip. The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, right? So the judgment that the Lord pours out, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, in that main place of the Lord's indignation that the Lord is going to bring, that main judgment is here, America, Babylon the Great. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the lambs, in the presence of the Lamb, right? Because his judgment is going to take place when Yahushua returns with the angels, and the main judgment is going to be by way of nuclear fire, right? As well as the fire that come from the chariots or the vehicles or the so-called UFOs of Yahushua and the angels. They're going to burn America down, man. And anyone on the soils of America who aren't of the elect of the nation of Israel, you are going to take part in that, right? Read that in 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, where he speaks about the elements melting with fervent heat. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, right? And that's the smoke of pretty much America, going into the sky for a very long time. Because scriptures also say that no man will be able to quench this fire. Meaning, that doesn't mean that it's never going to go out, but that no one's going to put it out, right? You're not going to have helicopters come with a big ass thing of water and pour it down on America. No, it's just going to continuously burn and smoke until it stops itself naturally. And that's going to be a very, very long time. And they have no rest day nor night who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name, right? So that destruction is for as we read in Proverbs, the 22nd chapter, for the simple. That's that punishment, man. When you look into this word punish, you have einash, to find, immerse, punish, condemn, moked, to find, punish, to be fined, to be punished, be moked, punished, condemned, right? That's that condemnation. See the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 33. We can start here at verse 29, and it reads, for they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. And what is the knowledge of that people hated? The words of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai that the Lord spoke through his prophets. And did not choose the fear of the Lord. So ultimately, right, Jake refused to repent. That simple, that pass on and are punished, that's them. That they hate the knowledge of the Lord, when all the Lord is trying to do is what? Warn you for the things to come, so that you can prepare by seeking him, so that he can find mercy on you, to keep you, protect you, preserve you through those things to come. And that's why they were also called what? Simple, man. Foolish. Because why wouldn't you want that? Right? For they hated knowledge. A fool hates knowledge, literally. That's why they're a fool. And they did not choose the fear of the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai. They would none of my counsel. They despise all of my reproof. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way, and be filled with their own devices. For the turning away of the simple shall slay them, and the prosperity of fools shall destroy them. Right? Because ultimately, what are they going to do? Take that mark. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, and shall be quiet from fear of evil. Right? Because those who hearken unto the Lord are going to prepare themselves, and the Lord, as we read here in Revelation 3 and 10, will do what? I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation. Right? Going into pretty much all the evils, man. And that's why it says here, it's the book of Matthew chapter 24 verse 24. We can start at verse 23. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is a Mashiach, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false Mashiachs. And this goes also in dealing with today, right? These devils have something called a Project Bluebeam, where they're going to try and stage, an alien invasion, to stage the return of the Lord, and so on and so forth. But we know that, through knowing prophecy, we know how that's supposed to go about. Right? So these things aren't going to affect us, and also, going into what? The pseudo miracles that these devils are going to do through their technology. Right? Let's grab here. It's the book of Deuteronomy, the 13th chapter. Because as read in that article, right, they were pretty much through the brain, neurotech, what they're going to be able to, make people superhumans, to keep it brief. It's the book of Deuteronomy chapter 13. We can start from the top. It reads, shun idolatry. If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder come to pass. Right? So you have this prophet, you have this, this dreamer of dreams is someone, right, with spiritual, or so it seems, spiritual ability, right? And they tell you that, okay, this is going to happen, and it does come to pass, right? But what? Wherefore he spake unto thee, saying, let us go after other gods, right? So if this prophet, is pretty much prophesying in the name of another god, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them, thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet, or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord, Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai, your God, proveth you. So the Lord allowed that to happen to see what you would do, to see if you would then go off and worship that other God. And I bring all this to say, because they are going to, market, a lot of these things to people to get them to want and come to, pretty much want this technology, want the MOTB, want these implants, want this transhumanism, because of the cool things that they could bring about, but that would be what, saying, let us go after another God, which would be the technology, man. That would be that other God, through the wonders coming to pass, right? I can now walk because I took this chip, I can now run without getting tired because I took this chip, and so on and so forth, right? I don't feel pain anymore, or whatever, but that's all in the name of another God. That's all in the name of Esau's technology. That's ultimately all in the name of Satan, man. Let us go after other gods which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Thou shalt not hearken unto the words of the prophet, of that prophet, or that dreamer of dreams, for the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai proveth you, to know whether ye love the Lord Yahweh Ba'ashem Awashai, your God, with all your heart and with all your soul, man. And that's ultimately the test that the Lord is coming to give the world, or those who believe on him, to see if you love the Lord with all your soul. You know, no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, but what you know to be true, what you know to be the words of Yahweh by Hashem Abishai, you know, what you know the Lord to be, you know, what you know his prophecies to be, you know, what you know the truth to be, right? The Lord is gonna come. The Lord is testing us, man. And you got to keep that in mind. So I believe that was all. Right? But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely and shall be quiet from fear of evil. Right? And the Lord is coming to see, will you still hearken unto him when you're faced with this? Will you still hearken unto him when you see this? Right? Or are you going to start second guessing? Nah, man. If you have the spirit of Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, you know, you're going to know what's right and what's wrong. Right? Because that's what we were here. Let's leave it off on this. Finishing this off, for there shall arise false Mashiachs and false prophets, and shall shew great signs and wonders, and so much that if it were possible. So as we also read in Deuteronomy 13, pretty much false prophets, right? False events, so on and so forth. These signs and wonders, pseudo miracles, you know, even real miracles. The Lord might allow it, as we just read, might have this person do a real miracle, but they coming in the name of another God. They coming in the name of Esau's technology, right? So then what are you going to do? As we read here, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. So it's not possible, you know, when you go into this word deceive, which I've been going into quite a lot recently, you have planao, to cause to stray, to lead astray, lead aside from the right way. Here, to lead away from the truth. So the elect of the nation of Israel will not be able to be led away from the truth. Why? Because the Lord, through his spirit, is the one guiding them. But whoso hearkeneth unto me shall dwell safely, man. So you have to repent, turn back to Yahweh by Hashem Abishai, and serve the Lord as best you can, you know, until the end. So with that being said, once more, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.